My pregnant wife's baby isn't mine. I showed my wife my original Reddit post. And she was very angry with me. So much so it caused a bad fight. And after it, I got the silent treatment for another week. I tried to make my kids stop mistreating their mother after the bunny incident. Even with being punished by small groundings and timeouts. But the BK nickname kept coming back every time our kids got angry with their mother. My wife let up on her cold shoulder routine after a couple of weeks and conceded she should have listened to me about the bunny and should have taken it to the bushes like I said. She claimed that she just felt like she needed to defend herself because she didn't want to be wrong. I accepted that apology and apologized myself for making the Reddit post. I wanted us to go to marriage counseling, but she refused. She acted like there was nothing wrong with our marriage. And I decided not to push the issue further since things were seemingly getting along better. But after a few weeks my eldest came to me saying she wanted to tell me something. There was another reason why she was so mad at her mother than just the bunny. But she was scared to tell me. I comforted her and told her she could tell me anything. Well, what she said shocked me and changed everything in an instant. She said that for months Mama had been bringing a man over some Saturdays I was at work and had referred to him as her special friend. She got our kids to keep quiet about it by various means of bribery. But my eldest realized that something was very wrong with it. And spent some time working up the courage to tell me. Kids know things and pick up on stuff very quickly. I really dislike it when people dismiss those facts. I had noticed my wife acting a bit differently lately. She had been more short with everyone. Especially the kids. I tried talking to her about it when I showed her my first post. And she just went off on me about any little thing she could think of. Insulted. My appearance, my character, my habits, even my side of the family. She even brought up that I used to smoke. I quit over 10 years ago. Then she resorted to locking me out of our bedroom and crying so loud you could hear it all over the house. So when my eldest came to me, I ended up putting two and two together. She was cheating, and her behavior was very similar to the mood swings she had while pregnant with both of our children. Similar, I say, because it was even worse. From what I've gathered searching online and what friends and even a counselor have told me, my wife was both very moody from hormones and projecting because of her infidelity. I can't claim to be an expert in psychology, but it does seem to make sense. I wanted it to all be a misunderstanding. But I quickly ordered and set up a few hidden cameras without anyone knowing. I had them delivered to my work just so no one at home would see them. Then I set them up on a day my wife went out to have a girls' night with her friends. It was very easy to hook them up and connect them to the Wi-Fi. In just a few short hours I could monitor every part of the house from my home PC, laptop, and work PC. At first I worried I might have been going overboard. I thought if it turned out I was wrong, then I could remove the cameras and no one would ever know. But no, my worst fears were confirmed as I got plenty of evidence in just the first week. The man my wife has taken as an affair partner is a former colleague of hers. I remembered him quite well as they seemed close with my wife whenever I met him at various functions. My wife quit her job years ago to be a full-time mom after getting pregnant with our first. It was a mutual decision for us both at the time. My wife stayed connected with her former coworkers as they were her best friends. But not anymore. What I'm about to tell you has pretty much made her hated by everyone. Firstly, the affair partner is younger than my wife by about a decade. She mentored him at her former job to fill her position when she left. And the two of them stayed close. Very close. My wife and I are both over 40, but you wouldn't know it from looking at her. She's positively stunning. She got mistaken for someone in their 20s quite a lot. And I guess she capitalized on that. I ended up confiding to my sister about what was going on, and showed her the footage from the nanny camps. She told me she'd suspected for a while. And said she'd seen my wife once at a local bar getting a bit too close with a man that wasn't me. But they never kissed or anything while she was watching. Just lots of touching on the shoulders and lower back. And since she wasn't sure, she didn't tell me sooner. I ended up ordering a GPS tracker as well. And after I got it working, I hid it in the trunk of my wife's car. My sister and her husband agreed to help me, and follow the tracker on my wife's next supposed night out with friends. She went to a completely different place 20 miles further away than where she usually goes. And from there she met up with a fair partner. My sister and Bill observed them for some time from their car. And noticed a fair partner kept rubbing her belly while they were talking. And they recorded video of this too. When I saw the footage I knew she had to be pregnant with his baby since she was so moody at home. My sister and Bill had to calm me down because I turned into a complete mess. Later I decided to take a leave from work, but told my wife I was actually going to be on a business trip. She couldn't have been more excited about it, and didn't try very hard to hide her glee that I'd be leaving for a while. What I did next shocked everyone. The child my cheating wife is having isn't mine. After having more and more disagreements with my wife, I realized my wife's behaviors changed while I was at work, so I confirmed my suspicions by installing cameras in our house. Her affair partner was one of my colleagues and he was constantly kissing and rubbing her belly, so I realized she was pregnant. I wasn't sure if it was mine though, so I had to confront her with cameras all over the house. And my sister and Bill agreed to take my kids for a few days because they love visiting auntie and uncle in the city. This gave my wife the exact opening she wanted. She called affair partner only a few hours after I left, and he showed up that evening to spend the night. I won't go into any detail about what they did around the house. You can fill in those details yourselves. But on top of all that, they were joking about me continuously. They openly talked about their baby, and how they needed to figure out what to do before her belly starts to show, as she was already over 3 months along by then, and there was no way it could be passed off as mine. Affair partner is a different race for me. So it'd be pretty easy to tell the baby wouldn't be mine from birth. My wife brushed affair partner's concerns aside and said that they had months to figure it out. Then she shamelessly admitted this wasn't even her first affair, as she'd slept with another man when she was 29. She told her affair partner she was sick of having to act like the good housewife, and was tired of being around a boring man like myself that made her feel old. And if it wasn't for me being so financially stable, she'd have left me long ago. Even her affair partner asked her about what her plan is with our kids. Her exact words were he can have them. She didn't even want to be around our kids anymore because she thought they liked me better. And she'd soon be having her do-over baby anyway. I very nearly threw the laptop on the floor in my motel room because I was so disgusted. But I contained myself, drank a few beers from a six-pack, got some dinner at a diner, then watched a movie. After that I spent half the night just laying in bed and thinking till I finally fell asleep. I thought I knew my wife so well. I loved her and would have given her all I had to give. But in the end some people are just evil, and you can never really know who they are till they reveal their true self. I made up my mind right then to destroy her in a divorce. I'm normally a very kind and calm man. But get me angry enough, and I can become your worst nightmare. I went to see a law firm for divorce lawyers the very next day, and asked for the meanest lawyer they had. I live in an at-fault state. So my wife was screwed the moment I had her affair on camera. The lawyer was initially apprehensive that I wanted to hire him so quickly, until I explained my situation in more detail. And I even showed him some of the video footage. That's when he got a devilish grin and we shook hands. He said he'd start right away because this was the kind of case divorce lawyers love to dig their teeth into. I had my wife served a few weeks later on a day I was working from home, and the kids were in school. The eldest in kindergarten, and the youngest in preschool. The papers were delivered right to my wife's hands by the local sheriff. The cameras caught it all. She looked scared while she opened the envelope, read the contents, and then lost her mind. She came running into my office to scream at me. But I remained cool and calm the whole time. I was already completely mentally checked out of our marriage. My wife wanted to argue. I just told her I'd made up my mind. And I wanted her out of my house. I'm the only one who's ever paid into the mortgage. She screamed at me that I can't do this to her. And then actually threatened to tell people I'd beat her if I'd take her to court, and get me fired from my job to boot. I told her to go right ahead. And make up any lie she wants. It won't help her. It's not like she wasn't planning on screwing me over since she's pregnant with her affair partner's baby anyway. She went wide-eyed and asked me how much I knew. I just said I knew enough, and told her once again that I wanted her to leave. She refused and said it was as much her house as it was mine. Then locked herself in the bedroom again. I saw on the bedroom cameras her having a meltdown, and then pulling out her phone and calling the police. She was acting like she was in complete panic, but there was a huge smile on her face while she was doing it. She was quite the actress. I'd have believed that performance over the phone in a heartbeat if I didn't already know she was a liar. I waited for the police with the front door wide open and told them to come right in when they arrived. They were initially hot-blooded and ready for a showdown. But the house was clean and there were no signs of any sort of fight. My wife came running out of the bedroom and grabbed the vest of one of the officers while crying and saying I was a maniac. I asked one of the other officers to let me show them evidence of what was really going on, and he agreed. Which really startled my wife as she was not aware that I'd recorded her. I showed the officer the footage from the cameras on my wife saying she'd make stuff up to ruin my life, and then the footage from the living room after she ran out of my office and into the master bedroom down the hall. And then the footage from the camera in the bedroom of her calling the police and lying. I'd recorded it all, and from multiple angles no less. And even though she claimed to the police I'd hit her, there was not only no marks on her, but the cameras all around the house showed a completely different story. Then I handed the police a thumb drive and said it had all the video footage they needed of her calling them under false pretenses. My wife, even in the face of all this, stuck to her lie of saying I was an abuser, and even tried to say the recordings were illegal, and therefore inadmissible. But I pointed out they are legal because they were security cameras inside of my own home, and not recorded in public. My wife looked to the police and told them to do something, to which they did. She was the one put in handcuffs. And she started bawling like a child. I could only sit there shaking my head. This was once the woman I'd loved for so many years. I thought she was a wonderful, intelligent and endearing person. I couldn't have been more wrong. As the police took her away, she screamed that they couldn't do this to her. But didn't fight back much, otherwise resisting arrest would have been added to her charges. I then shut down all her credit cards that were in my name, and stopped any future payments into the joint bank account. So she had to use entirely her own money to bail herself out of jail. She'd saved plenty all those years she was still working while the mortgage was only on me. So she was anything but broke. She came back for her car, which I'd taken the liberty of packing a few of her suitcases full of her clothes and some other things, and left the key on the seat. So she wasn't even able to come back into the house. My wife's parents did come to speak to me a day after she bailed herself out of jail. Initially they only had the backward story she told them, which was basically the same thing she tried to tell police. Her father especially was ready to attack me. Old as he is, he's big and strong. But when I asked him if he knew anything about my wife's affair or her pregnancy, he looked very surprised and gave me the chance to explain myself. I pulled out the laptop again to show my in-laws what I recorded. When they found out the truth, they were disgusted and said that they couldn't believe this person was their daughter. They apologized to me and said they'd keep in touch to help out with my kids. Then they called my wife on speaker right in front of me and confronted her about her lies. She tried to double down, till they said they were with my right then and saw the recordings. They knew everything, and wanted her out of their house immediately. She tried to backpedal, but my in-laws said they did not raise her to be a selfish adulterous bitch that would try to frame her own husband. And she was no longer their daughter. They disowned her over the phone right then and there. And then hung up before my wife could say anything.